Hello, everybody who is joining. We'll give it a moment while everybody gets admitted from the lobby, and then we'll go ahead and get started with today's program. It's really great to be with all of you today. Excellent. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. So hello, everyone. As you know, October is American Pharmacist Month. So we are thrilled to be with you all today to celebrate American Pharmacist Month and for this amazing Women in Pharmacy annual fall event. So welcome. We're excited to have so many of you join us today and from so many different practice areas as well as schools of pharmacy. So I'm Farah Tofik. I'm chair of the Women in Pharmacy Advisory Committee for the APHA Foundation. And the activities that are planned by the Women in Pharmacy Committee, we really work to provide resources related to leadership development, networking, balancing the demands of career and personal life. And our umbrella for Women in Pharmacy is inclusive of pharmacists, as well as student pharmacists and pharmacy technicians. And of course, our events are not just exclusive to women. We invite anyone in the pharmacy profession, our male colleagues, allies to who are our collaborators and supporters from throughout our colleagues is really important to our success. So we have a few items that I want to go over before we start with our panel discussion today and before I introduce our phenomenal panelists. Thank you both for joining us today. So first, because we are in the Zoom session, please remember to keep your microphone muted throughout the panel discussion. So you all had the opportunity, and thank you for that, to submit questions in advance of the event. But if you do have questions as we're going through a few themes tonight in our Q&A, please go ahead and pop them into the chat, and we'll try to get through as many as possible in tonight's program. So please do go ahead and include those in the chat, and we received some questions in advance that we'll also work through. So also, if there's a question in the chat that you particularly like, feel free to like it. It'll move it up in the queue so that we can make sure that we cover the popular questions. So I'd like to quickly introduce our panelists. And so the first question that I'll ask each of them is to spend a few minutes to share a little bit about their career journey and their trajectory. So first, our panelist, Reena Shah. She is the Senior Vice President of Pharmacy Modernization and Growth at Walgreens, based in Chicago. Reena has been at Walgreens for over 25 years and has held numerous roles and responsibilities, including Walgreens' COVID-19 response with vaccination as well as testing services. I first had the honor of meeting Reena at a Zeta Cooper Leadership Symposium in Iowa and got to hear her journey and hear her story. So we are in for a treat today. So we're really glad that you were able to join us again today. So thank you, Reena, for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Perfect. Thank you. And our second panelist is Pamela Smith. So Pam has been with Pfizer Medical Affairs for nearly 27 years, and she currently holds the role of Vaccines National Accounts Medical Lead. She also supports Pfizer's clinical trials diversity team and is a champion for health equity within medical affairs. And I first got to connect with Pam at last year's Women in Pharmacy annual meeting event. And had the honor to sit next to her as we were working through some leadership development, mentorship tips. So got to hear a lot about her background and journey as well. And I'm really excited that she's able to share it with you all today. So really excited to welcome you, Pam. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Farah.
Of course. So to kick us off, I'm going to go ahead and I'd like to invite Reena to start us off and share a little bit more about her story.
Yeah, definitely. And again, thank you. And thank you to APHA Foundation for having this event. I think it's fabulous being able to speak to all of the things that we encounter throughout our personal journey as well as our professional journey. And I would say that when I look back at my career, I would probably put it in 4 different chapters. For anyone that loves readings, I think the chapters make sense. I am a binge TV, like random watcher. So it's more series, like, the seasons that I've been able to watch through. So for me, it's more 4 seasons, but each one somewhat builds on each other. To start off, anyone that knows me, I think, knows that I come from a family of pharmacists. So I'm a first generation. My parents immigrated from India to the US. My dad's a pharmacist. And so I'm technically a second generation pharmacist, but first gen here in the States. And so I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area because my dad is a pharmacist and started off his career owning pharmacies, independent pharmacies. I pretty much was born in a pharmacy. Every weekend we were there, every summers we were there. We pretty much saw my parents really build a sense of community through the pharmacies that they had owned. And then over the years, he sold those pharmacies and then ended up working at Walgreens. And through that all, when I look back at like the first season of my career and my introduction into pharmacy, what I had learned and what I really took away, and I think this translated not only to myself, my brother's a pharmacist as well, go figure, but my sister, she's in education. She is a teacher. She does high school and junior high school in CPS. And I think what we all took away is the strong work ethic that our parents had, the importance of paying it forward, and that, community is everything. There are going to be times when you have a hard time and you need the community so that you can lean on them. And there's going to be times when the community needs you and you should be there for them. And so really when I think of my introduction into pharmacy, I saw day in, day out what my parents had done on the west side of Chicago, helping individuals get their medication, counsel them on life, teach them things that had nothing to do with pharmacy, but just advice because they wanted to pay it forward. And during that time, my dad and my parents both were very focused on our next phase of life, which was education, making sure we grew our career, and worried about financials, pretty much making sure that we were able to have food on our table and whatnot. And so my dad was pretty set on us being pharmacists. He's like, get the license, make sure you practice, and then you could be a pharmacy manager, and that would be fantastic. And think about, as any parent, you're going to be able to have such great work-life balance. And at the age of 18, you're like, I don't care about that, but fine, I'll go ahead and do it because I do love pharmacy. He had worked at Walgreens by the time I was graduating, finishing up high school. And so when I was old enough to actually work, he pretty much forced all 3 of us to work at Walgreens as technicians. We weren't allowed to get a discount at our local, at that time it was Marshall Fields, but it's now Macy's or Express. I had to work at Walgreens. And really it solidified my love for community. I truly loved helping individuals, being able to balance not only your clinical information, but then also how you can translate that to individuals that need it the most. And you see all different aspects of being able to pay it forward. And so in the second season, as I was going through pharmacy school, I had the luxury of going to UIC. So go UIC Flames. Went to College of Pharmacy there. And I know, Farah, we spoke at Iowa, but we actually, definitely a Midwestern. I learned there that, it's so important to work hard and create a network and be able to really create relationships. And so I started learning really what it means to have teamwork and how do you work as a team, and the fact that when all boats rise, it's actually the best for everyone. So when I graduated from pharmacy school, I worked in in our stores for a couple of years. And then from there, I went into the support center. And my first role was around immunizations and launching immunization services for our pharmacists. And we used to have nurses that would come in, and then we were able to get pharmacists trained to provide vaccinations. And so I'm dating myself. This is the early 2000s. And so we were able to train the entire country of pharmacists to provide vaccinations. And I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was incredible. I worked incredibly hard, worked 24/7. That's how passionate I was about it. I knew that it was changing what community pharmacy could do. And I wanted to be my lifelong dream. I never thought I could even come into this type of role as a pharmacist. So I
Mm,
was like, my career goals is to be the director of immunization services. That's what I wanted to do. And my VP at that time pretty much gave me some advice and said, Rena, you'll never be the director of immunizations. And I was like, well, that's not advice. That's just soul crushing. Thank you for sharing that. And he's like, that's
mm,
because we need diversity of experiences. You know this really well, but to be a strong leader, you need to look across different aspects. Otherwise, you see the same problem the same way. It's so important to have different experiences. Otherwise, you'll never be as successful as if you had different experiences to drive a better solution. So I was heartbroken because I truly loved immunizations, but at the end of my second season, I started realizing that I needed different experiences. So I understood the strong work ethic. I was able to really work really hard during immunizations. And then the third season was really around diversity of experiences and leading teams. And that's where leadership really came in. I might
mm.
not be a functional expert, but truly learning how to lead and feeling vulnerable that you don't know something. And as a pharmacist, I think we all can empathize with this. We are type A personalities, want to know everything, want everything crossed, T's crossed, I's dotted. That just requires you to invest that much more time to become an expert, but then also learn your leadership teams skills. And so my third season was truly around learning the different aspects of the business, feeling vulnerable in areas that I wasn't comfortable in, pushing myself in different ways. And during that time, I learned a lot about the different aspects of pharmacy, times when I've said no to career opportunities, and my mentors have said, nope, you're going to have to do it. That's how you learn. I was like, all right, I trust you. I'll go ahead and do it. And so it was always pushing me into different areas, but it gave me so many different opportunities. And what that led me to is being able to lead the COVID-19 response, or being able to drive specialty pharmacy. I was in our commercial division. I led sales operations where I had no experience doing that, but I was doing compensation packages. You just learn different aspects because I learned during that time, do not say no. Just always, like, the first time you can say no and someone will push you through that, but the second time they're not going to ask you again. So might as well always say yes to the opportunity, or if not now, when? How can I, maybe the timing isn't right now, but can we do it another time? And so during that third season, I learned quite a bit around that. And then, the season that I'm in right now. And so through it all, as you can imagine, there was quite a bit of change. And I mentioned my professional career, but a lot of that is also your personal life too. I'm so blessed to have gotten married to an incredible man, Nihar, my husband. We've been together since I graduated pharmacy school. Got married early in my late 20s. We did have about 10 years worth of fertility journey. So as I'm navigating work, he was there by my side as we were trying to figure out, should we adopt? Should we do, like we did IVF a bunch of times. Luckily, right before I turned 40, I snuck her right in. I was able to do my last round of IVF, and I was able to get pregnant and had my beautiful daughter, Amira. And that was a change, that changes your life. It changes it in such a positive way, but it does require you to think about boundaries in a different way. And so I learned a lot of what I needed to do to, not only maintain what I was passionate at work, but then also be able to be there as a mom for her. And then shortly thereafter, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. And so I went through about a year and a half, 2 years ago, actually now, I started chemotherapy for about 6 months, and I took a leave, a little bit of a leave from work so that I could actually spend time, take care of myself, and then came back to work. So this fourth season is about life just happens. And what do you do with it? And, it's definitely been a roller coaster. There have been times when I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, how do I manage work? How do I manage life? What do I need to do? And what I've realized is you just take it a day at a time. And if you're true to yourself, you're able to get to the next day. I have an incredible village. And that's what, if I think of my first 3 seasons, like it has created this massive, incredible village around me that has supported me so that I can navigate through this change. And when I didn't feel the strongest, it goes back to what I learned when I was a kid. Sometimes you need to lean on your community, and sometimes that community leans on you. And this was when I was leaning on my community, and they were there for me. And so I'm right now in a position where I'm able to hopefully pay it forward for many patients that were in a similar position as me, and be able to drive modernization and growth so that I can improve their patient experience. And through it all, my husband's been I've been like, oh, maybe I should just quit. Maybe I'll do this. And he's like, okay, some things just don't change. You're gonna keep doing, you need people that remind you, you're gonna keep doing what you're doing. This is just a point in time. Let's just keep on moving forward. And luckily I had people around me that really reinforced that, both at work, professionally and personally. And so that's where I am today. I'm so lucky to have worked in a community pharmacy and like within healthcare. And I'm also very blessed that I've been able to have all of the experiences that I've had to get me to where I'm at today.
That's amazing, Rena. I really like the seasons in sharing your story, and that fourth season with Amira entering your life, and that joy, and then also going through chemotherapy. That's really just an amazing journey, and how the community comes through to be able to support you through that. So it's incredible to be able to hear your story, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. So before we turn to you, Pam, to share your journey, so this Women in Pharmacy series, we called it Life Happens, and it's about navigating, come what may, challenges that arise. We know that we are in an environment right now where there have been, disruptions across, different individuals that may have gotten rift and had major career trajectory changes during that period. And so throughout the last 4 series that we've had, culminating in today's really hallmark event for the Women in Pharmacy Advisory Community and our 2 panelists, we've been able to hear from pharmacists across multiple journeys, transitioning from a student to a new practitioner, being able to talk about career pivots and how that takes place. And so that continues to come through all of the women that have come through these series and shared their stories. So please pop in any questions that you have in the chat. And now I'm really looking forward to hearing about your journey, Pam. So I'll turn the mic over to you, and would love to hear your story. Thank you.
Thank you, Rena. Incredible story and journey. Thank you for sharing. Hard act to follow, but I'm excited to share my journey too. I just want to say again, thank you to the Women in Pharmacy Advisory Committee with the APHA Foundation, again, for this amazing opportunity. And thanks to my co-panelist, Rena. Looking forward to addressing questions. So I love the thought of breaking it into seasons. I have to think about that for the future. I'll probably weave in my seasons as well, maybe not as formally, but again, just an opportunity, a great opportunity for me to be here today and to partner and help everyone that's on the line, just in terms of inspiration for students, student pharmacists, new practitioners, technicians, and pharmacists from a variety of fields. I think that's the other great aspect of that and this entire series, like thinking about all the different backgrounds that we have. And I'm thrilled with this theme of life happens, navigating each transition, because I think we can all share from that perspective. But again, Pam Smith, I'm Pfizer's National Account Medical Lead for vaccines. And I, as mentioned in the intro, had a privilege of working with Pfizer throughout my career of medical affairs for over 26 years. And I've tried throughout that time period to take on positions of increasing responsibility. So I'll talk about that a little bit more detail. And again, I'm fortunate to work with Pfizer, and I'm sure Rena could share the same thing in terms of Walgreens, where there's just immense support for pursuing your passion and exploring leadership opportunities. So I encourage everyone on the line just to think about that, where you are now, and make sure that you're looking for those opportunities where you can excel. where you are, regardless of where that is. So how did I get where I am now, and what has been my career journey? And I'll highlight a few things just to think about as everyone here on the line navigates their own journey and thinking about, I have a few pearls, I'll call them, and things to think about throughout that. So I graduated, I'm going to date myself too. I graduated from West Virginia University School of Pharmacy with my bachelor's degree in pharmacy. So it was a 5-year program at the time. And this was back when the PharmD option was just coming to fruition as an opportunity, and WVU didn't have that at the time. I loved my clinical rotations throughout that school experience. So I sought out and accepted a position at a tertiary care hospital at the time, and thinking about that and explored many options while I was there for 3 years, because I just loved that clinical aspect of pharmacy. And I realized pretty quickly that I wanted to advance my career beyond what I was doing at the time. So I went on and did a PharmD program at the Medical University of South Carolina, here in Charleston, South Carolina, which is where I am now. And I loved it and loved that experience. So I pursued a residency in critical care at the same place, and loved that as well. And then I went back to the same tertiary care hospital where I started, and I initiated their first surgical care pharmacy service, where I was able to thrive in that practice as a critical care pharmacy specialist and work on patient care projects, do research, precept students, teach, and I loved it. I had no plan at the time to practice in any other area than where I was, because I was just doing well and loving what I was doing. And then after 3 years of doing that, I was approached by industry to look into medical affairs at Pfizer. And my first question was, what does that mean? Or what does that even entail? Medical affairs at a pharmaceutical industry? I thought it was all sales at the time. And no, that was not the case. At the time, the position that I interviewed for, it was called Clinical Education Consultant. It's now called Medical Outcomes and Analytics at Pfizer as part of medical affairs. And my thought at the time was, what can it hurt, to interview and learn more? Like what possibly could a medical affairs position be within a pharmaceutical industry? So I did that, and that was over 26 years ago. And so I've served in this, or when I first started at Pfizer, I served in this medical generalist role for the first 17 years. And I was able to build my career even more and learn so much during that time, even though it wasn't part of my original plan. And then after those 17 years, an opportunity presented itself for a promotion. And it was a promotion to get back into a more specialist role, which is what I had trained for in critical care. And so I interviewed for that, took a promotion as a field medical senior director in cardiovascular care and smoking cessation at the time. I was in that role for 5 years, and then moved on to another exciting opportunity in a specialty role during the pandemic time as a vaccines medical director. And so I've moved up to through that process. I was regionally based, and then I moved up to my current position, which is a vaccines medical lead for national accounts, which is super exciting. So that's kind of been my career journey. I think just in the next couple of minutes, I just wanted to touch briefly for the group on the call tonight, thinking about 4 key points that I want you to think about in your career journey, and ones that I believe have led to my successful navigation of my career. And those are networking, mentorship, leadership, and planning. So when you think about networking, I know I would not be where I am today without building those relationships, both within Pfizer, but also networking externally. And so I've spent much of my career precepting students, teaching residents, and I always emphasize to them the critical importance of networking. Like every time I'm teaching, I tie in that word networking and what it means all the time. And you just never know, like I did, when an opportunity is going to present itself, and you have to be ready to capitalize on that opportunity. And then secondly, I think, I talked about mentorship. Having great mentors is another key to success, in my opinion, in our quest to be leaders in pharmacy. So I've been super fortunate to have wonderful mentors who have helped me along the way. And like Rena said, give me advice either way, even if I might not have known whether it was good advice at the time or not. And I think those connections have helped me and been invaluable over my career. And then thirdly, I mentioned leadership. We have to intentionally find those opportunities where we can lead and influence the direction of pharmacy overall. And that could be in your current formal role, which I mean, I feel like I do that every day within the profession, but also just leading without authority. And then lastly, I mentioned planning. I think it's always important to have a plan for your future, no matter what your career path, and that includes both short-term and long-term planning. And I think, make sure you're thinking about what are your passions, what is your why, and just be self-aware of what are my strengths. Find those opportunities that align with your strengths, and then build that into your plan. But even though you plan, kind of like what happened with me, you have a plan, but always be open to the opportunities that might not be explicit in your plan, but will still put you on a path for success. So I think in addition to those four things, just be prepared to tell your story. I think that's important. I always call it, don't be afraid to toot your own horn. Have your elevator speech always ready, and about your positive impact and your path to success. So looking forward to networking with all the amazing pharmacists that are on the line tonight, and invite you to connect with me afterwards, after this program. And just thank you again to APHA Foundation, Women in Pharmacy, for the great partnership.
Thank you so much, Pam, for sharing your journey. So I like that. We've got 4 seasons, and then we've got networking, mentorship, leadership, and planning. So we're staying, on theme with those 4 critical components. So thank you so much for sharing that. So we are really excited to kick off with questions from you all. So feel free to drop them into the chat. Feel free to direct message them to Emily. I know a few have come through. So one that has gotten a lot of engagement is around mentorship. And you touched on it, Pam, and so did you, Rena. And so this is something that we're noticing across the Women in Pharmacy events that we've done over the past 3 years. So it's been around the theme of, how do I get mentors? And I think it's been especially a challenge for many student pharmacists who maybe have transitioned during COVID times and didn't have as many in-person activities to help foster some of those relationships. So I'm actually going to go to each of you, and I value hearing from you. What advice do you have for folks to be able to ignite that mentor-mentee relationship, and really, be able to feed it so that it can become that community that comes to you and says, no, you have to take this job. I'm going to help you through it. That helps to open doors for you, Pam, like you sort of shared. So maybe, Rena, I'll go to you first on this one. And what advice do you have on igniting that relationship?
Yeah, so I think there's probably like a couple of cuts with this, but there's probably, I would say, in my experience, 2 types of mentors. One that has happened through natural course of business, where you have been working on certain projects, you've been exposed to certain leaders or influential individuals across the organization that you're in, or you've come across individuals maybe in like a setting like this, and you've been able to leave a lasting impression where you've vibed with someone, right? You've connected, or they've piqued an interest in you because they just really like your style or something of the sort. And that happens more passively and more naturally. And in that situation, I've seen mentors just happen, which for me, that's been much more beneficial for my case. The ones that are more natural, where they've seen my work in action, they feel confident in what I've produced. And so anything that they're doing to help mentor me, it's because I've already, the proof was in the pudding, like it was already there. And so that's one type of mentor. The other type of mentor is somewhat of a formalized mentorship, where maybe through someone that you or I, let's just say, have identified that I really look up to, that I have seen them interact, and I've reached out to them, where I've said, you know what, like I would love to get mentored by them just to get their feedback? How do they get to where they're at? Like be able to engage on certain conversations. And that ends up being either facilitated by the individual or through a group. APHA does, like may facilitate that, help women. I know Healthcare Business Women Association does mentorships like that. Our own internal organization at Walgreens does that, where it's more organized in that way. That one tends to be, in my experience, has been more 50-50. Sometimes it totally, works because your personalities work together, you immediately click and it's fantastic. And other times it doesn't happen and you just take the shot, right? You'd go ahead and try to help out and try to see if there's a there. In both situations, both parties have to be able to understand what are the responsibilities of a mentor-mentee relationship. The mentee really dictates how it goes in the grand scheme of things. The mentee says, okay, I want to engage at this level. I want this type of feedback. I want to come in very prepared of what I would like to talk through. And then it's a matter of you develop a relationship over time. And so for me, I've had mentors that have been on both realms, of those that have been in direct line management that I once worked for and then I left, and they actually continued to stay a mentor for me. Others where they had nothing to do with what I'm doing. It was somewhat of an assigned relationship, but then I came in very prepared of what my expectations were, which was, I want to one day work in international. I want to do this. And so how do I go about it? And then it ended up being more comical because that wasn't going to happen, but it opened up the door to create a relationship. There have been other times where that didn't work. I was not prepared, and it didn't land. Now, the benefit of both, though, I can tell you pretty much 95% of the roles that I've had has been because a mentor or advocate had either guided me to accept the role and or put me up for a role or opened up a door to have me walk through it. At the end of the day, it's my responsibility, but that mentor or advocate really helped facilitate that because they backed me. And it might have even just been confidence and making me feel more confident about it, but it definitely has helped me. So that investment in the relationship, at the end of the day, it's really the relationship. That's what ends up being the most important. And I do say, if you have an opportunity to be in the office, be in the office. Like if you can, you got to make relationships. So it's either on the phone, it's via conference, or it's in the office. And so that's the best way to really foster a strong mentorship, mentee-mentor relationship.
Thank you, Rena. Thank you for sharing that. I do think like the casual collisions that happen in the office, at like grabbing coffee, that's where you can, solidify a bond. Meet somebody from outside your direct, like 10 people that you meet with, in your job.
Mine was in the cafeteria. I was in the cafeteria and someone's like, oh, we should grab lunch. And I was like, okay, you're C-suite executive. I thought you were joking. And then I ran into him again in the cafeteria. He's like, you never set it up. And I was like, oh, okay. You were
serious?
I'll go ahead and do it. Yeah.
Amazing.
So,
Amazing.
It happens,
Yep. Pam, would love to hear your perspective. How to ignite that relationship, mentor-mentee.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that was a very comprehensive response. So thanks, Serena. I think, I always look at it. I think you're using some of the same terminology. Like, I think it's really important to have formal mentors. So those are the ones I think that you seek out. And I know at Pfizer, like we have a find a mentor program. And I think having those ongoing formal mentorships all throughout your career, and that's going to change over time with seeking out those formal mentors. And I know I've done that throughout my career, and I think don't like put yourself in a box. I'll say, like, in terms of like, oh, it has to be another pharmacist mentor. I know I've had mentors within Pfizer that are in marketing and research and development, and I've just learned so much from them. And so I think you have to be very proactive and seek out those formal mentorships. That first and foremost is so important. But I think also even having those mentors outside of your like current employer or your current school or your current residency program is also so key. So, have mentors that are part of other, pharmacy associations. I think you can take advantage of that. And I teach that to residents too, try to
Mhm.
expose them to different opportunities and building relationships outside of your current employer. And I think I actually had a leader at Pfizer very recently, two levels above me, and we were talking about mentorship and how important it is. But he shared something that kind of resonated with me that I think is intuitive, but it just has stuck with me over the past couple of weeks, even like sometimes like you seek out a mentor and you have that initial conversation with them, and perhaps like it's not a click, like, okay, I'm not going to get as much out of this relationship as I thought I was. And like recognize that, because you don't want to waste that mentor's time and you don't want to waste your own time. So just make
Mhm.
sure that it's mutually beneficial in terms of what you're looking for in a
Mhm.
mentor. And so I think, that's like on the formal mentor side. And then I think just always having informal mentors as well. That can be
Mhm.
like Rena was talking about, like in the cafeteria talking to someone, or, just picking up the phone. Like I try to do that just to stimulate myself with different colleagues on my team, like just talking to them and sharing experiences. Like, hey, we're not meeting on a routine basis, but hey, I just want to talk this through with you. And kind of having those informal mentor relationships, I think, is equally as important.
Yeah. Thank you, Pam. That's amazing. And I think it highlighted a really important point. No matter where you are in your career, you could, be for 30 years of experience, all of that. You still have a mentor that, you work with to and mentees. It's okay to have both, to be a mentor and to have mentees. I'm sorry, to be mentored by somebody as well. So I think that that's a really important journey, and making sure that it's the right click, right fit in that relationship, to go towards success in that mentee relationship. So thank you
Yeah.
both for that.
I think also I was just going to add to that too,
Yeah.
like thinking, like I've been in some group meetings recently, and the question will be asked, like, do you have a mentor? And I think I'm a little bit shocked of people that do not. So like if you do
Mm.
not right now, please make sure you do, because it's such a key to success. And it kind of ties into one of the things I was talking about earlier in terms of networking. Like your mentor can
Mhm.
help you network too.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the one of the keys to success.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you. So one of the questions that we got from the webinar attendees is, how do you go about a transition? So say you're in pharmacy, you're operating in a health system, you're operating in a community pharmacy. How do you make that transition into potentially a completely different path? Maybe you go more into business development, because we know how multi-tool pharmacists are. It's not just, community or hospital that maybe was thought of 50, 100 years ago or so. Like, it's really evolved. So how do you go about making that transition? Do you want to touch on that one, Pam?
Yeah, I can kick us off and then
Sure.
let Rena chime in. But
Sure.
it's a very timely question for me, because I've actually gone through this in the past 3 months. I recently went through a reorganization at Pfizer to a new team, but I'm still doing the same role that I've been doing for about 5 years now. So that's been an interesting transition. I've been through many of those types of reorganization transitions, but I think kind of the same principles to address your question apply.
Mhm.
And the way I've always approached it, just like with any other transition, like first, I think understanding that your current role doesn't mean, like enjoying your current role doesn't mean that you're not ready for change. I think it, kind of signals that, you've built a strong foundation, and now you can seek growth opportunities, impact opportunities, alignment with whatever your evolving goals are. But I think, talking specifically about pharmaceutical industry and career transitions, they occur, I think, like in other sectors, a lot, increasingly common and well supported. So for me, the current transition that I'm experiencing includes reporting to a new leader. And it's an opportunity to take advantage of the change that is before me right now, especially because it's not a position that I applied for or did I get asked about ahead of time? It was just, here's what we're doing with you, Pam. So I think it's an opportunity to sit back and reflect and think about, okay, I'm going to step up. I'm going to lead with this new organization and capitalize on what I know my strengths are, and show to this new team like how I can impact them and show results to this new team. So I think there's just a couple of things there, like leverage what your transferable skills are, like what clinical insights do you have, what your data interpretation, for me, leadership. Build on, again, what we were talking about before, build on your networks and your mentorships. And I think just stay authentic and understand, okay, what is my why in that transition?
Wonderful, Pam. Rena, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, you summarized it so well, Pam, that, what is my why is such a great way of thinking about it. I think in general, things are going to happen that you have no control over. And that's hard. That is really hard. It happens personally, professionally, across everything. Sometimes it feels like it's a massive car accident and you're like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to get through this? And sometimes it's just like a little, fender bender, and it's fine and you can move on and it's not a big deal. It's just a little bit of a change. A little bit of a change feels like, okay, my boss got promoted and I have a new boss and I have to work through that type of change. Then there's things that you instigated, which is great, but it does feel nerve-wracking, right? Like when you instigate something, if you want to venture out. I don't know about all of you. I think me and Pam fit in the criteria of being at one company for a very long time. And so obviously you can tell we do love change, but we also don't love change. We love like stability. And then you have individuals like my brother, who's a pharmacist, or my husband, who've been to 4 different companies over time. And they've constantly had to reinvent themselves with individuals that don't know them. And I think like even within Walgreens, we've had new leadership on a consistent basis. So you do have to reinvent yourself, or at least reshare what you've been able to do. It's not like your parents or your family, right? And so that the tips that I would say Pamela provided at the very beginning are so critical. The planning aspect of it, knowing your elevator speech, knowing what's really, really important to you, and not being stuck about a certain functional capability, but the experiences that you want to gain. And so when I go into each role that I've either been voluntold to go to, or like a role that I've chosen, either one, I've had to go in thinking, okay, what do I want to get out of this experience? What is the impact I want to make? So those two things. And it's a very selfish question. It feels very selfish, but you have to be selfish for you to be like content about your decisions that are going forward. You don't want to feel like things are being done to you. And so I've gone into roles saying, okay, I have never learned anything about this P&L, so I want to learn that. I have never led a team of this size, or I've never had this type of experience. And so being able to say, I want to learn this, or I want to gain that helps. And then also being able to say, okay, what's the impact I want to make, and creating somewhat of a 30, 90, 120-day plan for yourself. So that creates control for you. But it is tough when you don't know, when things are happening to you, like a car crash, let's just say. But you know what ends up happening is you end up coming out of it, you figure out either you get a new car or you fix it, and then you move forward. And the biggest important thing is that you move forward. You cannot feel stagnant because of the chaos around you, or things that might have felt like stagnant, either because you're not happy in your job and you want to make a change and you don't feel confident enough to do it, or stagnant that things have been done to you and you don't know what to do. That's where the network is so critical. And that's why you have to figure out what your next step is and act on it. And that ends up being such a huge benefactor, at least for me personally, of being able to get through the shock of change and then be able to move forward, or get the confidence of change and move forward.
I like that, Rena. That's right. And I think, another theme, our next question that came through really builds on that. So you both have talked about the value of relationships, community, network. So oftentimes, and this is a factor that has really an outsized impact on women in particular, and that's the caretaker role. So our next question that came through really inquires about how do you network when you've been out of pharmacy for a season or more as a caretaker, because you had to take that step back and become a caretaker. Maybe Pam, I'll turn to you on this one first.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, again, such a great question, and something to reflect on. And I think I have two examples, and they're both very different examples. One was from quite some time ago, and another one more recently. And I think both of these will highlight like where many on the line might find themselves depending on your age and your generation. So I'll use both examples because I think they're relevant in terms of the answer, and like how do you network when you've been out for whatever amount of time. So for me, the first one is I was on maternity leave 22 years ago, which is hard to believe now, out for about 4 months. And then more recently, I find myself caring for a mother who has stage 4 lung cancer and a father who has advanced dementia. So, two totally different cases, but I think the principles, again, are the same in terms of where we are in our career. So I think stepping away from pharmacy for caregiving, thinking of it like this is not a detour. It's another chapter. It goes back to Rena's point about seasons. It's another chapter that, again, I think it can help you build resilience, empathy, thinking more about caregiving my parents, and then perspective. And then when you come back, like how do you apply what you've learned from those experiences into your career? And I think, being able to take that and, just reigniting your network. So go back to the networking and thinking about repositioning your expertise based on what you've learned through those experiences, and just kind of reclaiming your voice, like as a leader, for example. And I think, those life experiences can help you build even more transferable skills and skill sets, including the empathy that I talked about, even time management. You think about, I'm thinking about more about my more recent example with parents, and like being able to manage all of that from a time management, and then crisis navigation. We deal with that in our professional lives, but also in our personal lives. So how do you, like, if you've had to be a caregiver and you come back, like, how can I better deal with crises? So I think, just being able to reconnect when you do come back, whether that's, obviously through your mentors, your network, through different associations that you might be involved with, going back to, if you were mentoring and being a mentee, like re-establish that as well. And then, depending on how long you've been out, you may have to think about like, how do I update, or think about like my digital presence. I'm thinking about LinkedIn or X, or, whatever your platforms might be for that. So thinking about that based on your time away. So I think just, overall using what you learn from those personal experiences and applying that professionally as well.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you. We actually just got another question that is a little bit on that flavor that I'm going to pose to you, Rena. And that's, what do you find most difficult about being a woman and having a very successful career?
What do I find the most difficult? There is, I don't know about everyone else, but I have hardcore FOMO. I want to be everywhere. I want to be very, like, I love working and I love what I do. I love the impact I'm able to make. I love the team I get to lead or be a part of. I love my boss. Like, I love what I do. But I also, even more so, love my family. I love my kid. My family in general. And I like vacations. And I like, I was just in Amsterdam and Paris for a couple of days celebrating 2 years of getting diagnosed. And we were able to get there and we were so excited. So I just love so many different things. So then the hardest part is like really just making decisions. And I know some parts of what, you know, we're not toddlers. We know that we have to make decisions, and we know that there's sacrifices to that, and being okay with it and feeling like, you know what, you made the best decision in the moment that you wanted, and you had to prioritize. And a lot of people talk about work-life balance. There's no such thing as a balance. It's just work-life choice. Like, what did you choose in that day, in that moment? For me, like, at least my perspective. So the hardest part
Mhm.
for me is making that individual choice and then being okay with that. But that's because, you know, when you want to be a part of it all, it's tough then to make those decisions. But I've been lucky where you know, I have my husband who tells me all the time, being like, it's okay, I will pick her up. You go do your thing. Or nope, you haven't been here. Like, so make sure that you do come to this, because that's more important than that extra meeting that you have. So being able to have people around you that hold up a mirror and remind you of what your important moments are critical. But yeah, I think for me that's been the hardest part, is making those choices. And I can tell you there's
Yeah.
been plenty of times I've made mistakes throughout the years, and I've prioritized one way, I've over rotated over another. And then you learn from them, and you want to look back and you're like, okay, I don't want to do that the next time, so let's learn from that and move forward. So it's
Wow.
definitely been a journey.
Thank you, Rena, and I appreciate your story about Amsterdam. I think this will be a good way to close us out. Our last question, and this is a fun one. Describe your self-care routine or ways that you take care of yourself, especially during transitions or during a tough time. Maybe I can send this one to you, Pam.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's probably one of the areas where I know I need to do a better job. It's like Rita, I'm like, I do have that FOMO a lot because I want to be involved in everything, and I want to, you know, show all the impacts I can have. I mean, both at work, at
Mhm.
home with my son. So yeah, a lot of things. So you're just trying to think about things I try to practice every day. And I will be the first one to admit that I don't do them all every day. It's like kind of like aspirational goals of things that I do incorporate in different parts of the day. And you know, I'll go back to the seasons, and I am like, I'll just take like the day routine part of it. I think, you know, just in the morning, what I try to do every morning is just kind of start the day with purposeful intention. Like, think about, you know, going back to what is my why, and I try to do just some quiet reflection. You know, it only has to be a couple of minutes, like just reminding myself what am I thankful for, and you know, what brings me joy, and then, you know, meditation,
Mhm.
prayer. So like just starting the day that way. I think, you know, just thinking about our own health and our bodies and nourishing our bodies. So I'm not a big breakfast eater, but I try to make sure, like, grab a yogurt, grab a protein shake, because that's important, and
Mhm.
hydrate. Like, just trying to think of how can I be the best I can be every day, and what are those things that are going to help me get there. And I think just throughout the day, again, not easy, because I think this is
Mhm.
probably the area that I struggle with the most, based on everything that we've talked about tonight. But just trying to set boundaries, which is
Mhm.
always difficult. And I try to block a portion of my day. I know I had a mentor many, many years ago that said, you do need to block part of your day just to think about, you know, things that you're working on, and think about, like, I'm in a strategy and execution lead role. You need to take time to think about that strategy and execution. You can't just like go from call to call to call every day, which does happen. But think about blocking that time so that you can be strategic.
Mhm.
Um, Try to minimize stress. It's not easy. Think about things that you can say no to. That's a really hard one for me, especially. And the way I try to do that is think like, okay, whatever's being asked of me, does this align with what my current strategies and goals are? Taking digital breaks when I can, like, especially in the evening time, like, don't be on your phone all the time. Not easy. You know, again, throughout the day, just having healthy snacks to keep your energy level up.
Mhm.
I think connection and support, you know, both professionally, like family support, mentorship, checking in with peers. I do something that I absolutely love, and I need to find a way to build this in more, but I do walk and talks with different colleagues in the morning. I wish I did that every morning, but it's a great way to move, and
Yeah.
you're still accomplishing like your work. Like I have several colleagues at work that we do that each week. It's different colleagues, like on a routine basis, the same colleagues, but just walk and talk. And then just emotionally, like your emotional wellness, having therapeutic outlets. I do have a therapist and a therapist slash coach that I work
Mhm.
with. I do journaling on a routine basis. I have a journal on my nightstand and try to write every night, you know, what did I learn today? What do I need to let go of? Things like that. There's so many different things. I try to do podcasts when I'm traveling and or walking.
Yeah. Mhm.
Again, these are all just like tips that I've gathered over the years. I don't do them all every day, but I think they're all
Mhm.
so important. And then just like at the end of the day, like do something that you love, like whether that's binge TV watching. I do that when I can, or not binge, but like like watching series and um,
Yeah.
you know, again, the digital breaks, and then just the, you know, I love to read. I don't do as much as that as I would like. I will mention a book that I'm reading right now that I always try to like have a book suggestion, but it's
Mhm.
called I have it laid over here. It's The Happiness Advantage. It's really
Oh,
good. So trying to do that, and then just get enough sleep. So
yes. It's a challenge. It's a
yeah, I could
challenge.
go on and on about the things that are important for self-care, but just wanted to
Thank you.
kind of think of as many tips as I could. Not one I
Mhm.
do every day, but try to.
Yeah. Thank you, Pam. I like the walk and talks as well. Anything you'd like to add, Rena, on
Oh,
something that
that was a
you
fantastic list of activities for self-care. You know, I think that like, yeah, staying hydrated and making sure you're eating healthy foods and making sure you're, you know, investing in yourself. I think many of the times, you know, I'm also guilty of you go all day and then you realize you haven't eaten anything until dinner. So, you know,
Yes.
especially when you have like little ones, it just happens regularly. And so before you know it, you're eating off of their plates and whatnot. So I think creating those boundaries of like, okay, I'm going to mark myself off for lunch and I'm going to be able to catch up then and also do that. I've also, you know, realized I've had to say no to things, you know, and I think
Mhm.
that has been important. And a part of my self care is spending as much time in my personal life as I am on my personal life, like making sure there's equal amount of events that are scheduled as much as possible. And so if that means like nights out with my friends, staying at home, being able to do something that, you know, fills my cup up, even if it's going to grab a drink with a coworker, and that's okay, it's therapeutic, like, but at least it's something for me. That's definitely something that I have to do to go ahead and fill up my cup on things that
Yeah.
don't have anything that requires me to sit in a meeting and or like, you know, do something like a school activity, right? Like something for myself.
Yes.
So
Something completely different, something to
yes.
kind of really allow you to shift, refill your cup
Yeah.
and go on. So this was amazing. Thank you both for your perspective. I wish we could go on with the questions. So keep them coming. It'll help us inform events that we do in the future as well. But I am going to wrap us up as we come to the top of the hour. So the APHA Foundation is really committed to supporting pharmacists in all career stages. And that was part of what the advisory committee went into shaping this Life Happens, Navigating Each Transition series, because we heard from folks about challenges they encounter across different career paths. So we really appreciate everyone's support. We're grateful to Merck and Pfizer for their support of the Women in Pharmacy Advisory Committee events. It's how we're able to join everybody at the annual meeting and to help put together all of these events. And if you are in a position to support this work, you do have that opportunity to help make a contribution to the APHA Foundation. So my colleague Emily will drop a link for that in the chat. In order to support our programs. And I'd also like to take a minute to mention another important Women in Pharmacy initiative that's going on right now, and that's the Zeta Cooper Leadership medal nominations, and they are now open. So this was a program actually where I met Rena at the University of Iowa, and it's actually now coming to the national stage with the APHA Foundation Women in Pharmacy Advisory Committee event. So at annual meeting right now, actually, we're taking nominations for the Zeta Cooper Domer Distinguished Lecturer. So this award recognizes an individual who has made notable strides in advancing leadership within the pharmacy profession and championing collaboration. It is not just limited to women or APHA members or even pharmacists. So you can go into the, my colleague Emily will drop that link to the APHA Foundation website to learn more and to nominate a deserving woman for that recognition. So thank you all so much for participating today. We are planning our activity and invite you to join us at the APHA 2026 annual meeting in Los Angeles. So tickets will be available for purchase with your registration, and that will open soon in November. And if you'd like to get involved with our activities, please visit our Women in Pharmacy webpage or email Emily Albers. So she's, by the way, thank you to Emily Albers, the wonderful liaison to the APHA Foundation Women in Pharmacy Advisory Committee. Thank you for making all this happen behind the scenes. And thank you to the APHA Foundation. I see their president, Elizabeth Johnson. Thank you for joining us today. So thank you all for the support, and you'll see the LinkedIn links for our awesome panelists today. Thank you both. You did a phenomenal job in really talking us through your career journey, and happy American Pharmacist Month to everybody. I wish you all a wonderful evening. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a good night.